Welcome back to another episode of the Journey to Legacy podcast. My name is Wayne Veldsman. As always, thank you all so much for being here. Today, we are interviewing Mr. Bob Wischer and his business, Men Becoming Better Men. Bob's going to share some amazing things about intense trauma that he figured out pretty late in life, which explained why he felt almost invisible, why he felt like he had to play small, didn't allow him to reach his full potential, that luckily a blessing that he's living in today. So I'm going to let you all jump right on in. It's truly an amazing episode. I think you're going to enjoy it a lot. Without further ado, Mr. Bob Wischer. Bob, thank you so much for being here today.
Hey, thanks for having me, Wayne.
Kick us off. Tell us a little bit about yourself.
All right, thanks. My name is Bob Wischer. I am the relationship engineer. And I call myself that because I've worked in the automotive industry for over 30 years as a program manager. And I've learned a lot about relationships and how to work with people, how to understand people, how to help people get along. And right now I primarily work with hardworking, driven men who feel lost and disconnected. And what I do is I empower them with tools and support to engineer the life that they want, to feel full of joy, meaning, and connection. I do this because when I was growing up, I always felt like the odd man out. I was never, I was never in with the cool kids. I was never hanging around with the nerds or the jocks or anybody. It's kind of just floating there in between. And I made a shocking discovery a couple of years ago about basically what caused that in my life. A traumatic event that happened to me prior to even being born. And when I found that out, I decided to use that information to rewrite my story and start forging meaningful connections. So after working with a few coaches and mentors, I untangled the knots of my past and embraced a new way of living. And now I've been on a journey of discovery and healing for about 7 years now. And it's led me down a path of creating not only a community where I coach folks one-on-one, but also I have a support group of men that's about depending on the week, usually about 20 to 25 men show up every other week, and been serving them through all of the things I've learned, all the tools I've come across in my life to help men basically get out of their own way and feel like they belong, first of all. Help them find purpose and live in integrity and alignment with themselves.
Amazing. Bob Wischer, the relationship engineer, and your company, Men Becoming Better Men.
Yeah.
Bob, you really have a great story. One that I think a lot of people relate to. As you say, growing up, you didn't really fit quite in. You weren't a nerd. You weren't a jock. Like, sure, no doubt you had some friends, but you just didn't really fit in. And thus, you went through life believing this is just sort of the way it is. I'm being taught, I'm being educated, I'm taking the steps of school to college to career to success, yet leading all to unfulfillment. And so you said, about 7-ish years ago, you sort of discovered this trauma that had happened. Let's dive into a little specifics here. I'm sure a lot of people can relate. Tell us what you discovered and what sort of started to make this switch for you in your mindset towards growth and entrepreneurship.
Yeah. Really what I ended up learning was that I was I was conceived before my parents were married, which again, not a big deal. And if you just look at it on the surface, but if you know the backstory of what was happening, what was going on in my parents' lives at the time, the things that kind of, that shifted for them at that point, the dreams that were no longer able to be pursued. What I know now is that energy that they were feeling, that stress, the anxiety, the shame and guilt that they felt because that happened, I happened, changed the trajectory of their lives. And knowing that energy came into me even prior to being born, basically created a identity and beliefs in my own subconscious, even at that age, that I felt like I didn't have the right to exist. I felt like I was invisible. I felt like I didn't belong. And those threads and those mindset pieces, if I was now that I understand them, to play them, look at the areas of my life, the relationships I had, the things I did, the mistakes I made, the decisions I made, all through my entire life. I can see where those different pieces played into those decisions or those things that were going on, and realized that all along I was just playing small. I felt like I couldn't be out there. I couldn't feel it. I felt like I couldn't, use my voice and speak my truth and do the things that I wanted to do. I had to stay on the path and, go to college and get married, do this and do this and do this, just like everybody else. Whereas I had this internal drive that I wanted to do these other things that I really wasn't able to, or didn't understand that I had the power to do.
Sure. Sure. Wow. Like you said, sure, being conceived out of marriage, out of wedlock is seemingly not a crazy thing in itself. But when it sort of escalates or transpires, that of course, we adopt a lot of the thoughts and feelings that our parents have, right? Before birth and after, of
Yeah.
course, the stresses that they're going through, which seems like it caused you to sort of have this feeling like you didn't have the right to exist. Feeling invisible, small, causing you to play small. It's interesting. I shared with you that a past interview guest that I had, that she at 2 years old, um, essentially was diagnosed with a life-threatening disease, and she was actually at the time in a third world country, a low-income family, and her family miraculously got the funds to take her to the U.S. to a specialist. She
Nice.
survived. Thankfully, she survived, a blessing. But to her, this now was similar. Like her whole life, she almost felt like she didn't have the right to exist, because the reason that she exists actually, in her eyes, harmed her family. She
Yeah.
says that nobody ever told her that. She made it up
Yeah.
herself, but it caused her also to play small. And so it's interesting to me that more people are suffering from this trauma than we think.
Oh,
And so,
absolutely.
how did you? I'm hoping for some actionable stuff that people can try themselves, maybe, or just some advice. How did you
Yeah.
figure this out? How did you start to work through it?
So once I figured it out, it was really just a matter of, you know, getting, the book Carol Dweck mindset, right? It's you're either in a fixed mindset or you're in a growth mindset. And I had been in a fixed mindset basically all my life, that this was it. Just this little box. I live in this little box. I'm not allowed to come out of the box, and I just have to keep doing the things that the world, the family, society expects me to do, instead of getting out of the box, which is where I really wanted to be, and be an entrepreneur, be a thought leader, be a creator. And what helped me to do that was just getting into that growth mindset and starting to learn again. I hadn't picked up a nonfiction book since I was probably 20 years old.
Well,
And now I have a bookshelf full of them, and an Audible account full of them, that when I'm reading these books, it's almost like I'm a kid again, you know, and like I'm sitting in third grade learning about whatever it is we learned about in third grade that I don't even remember anymore. But it just feels like all new information. Like, wow, that's so fascinating. And talking about mindset things, and I'm reading a book now about shame and how all these things and how the psychology of it plays out. And oddly enough, I wanted to be. I actually had considered going into psychology in college, and I went and I had a conversation with a counselor, and they steered me towards business.
yeah,
Now, it's okay. It's worked out. But
sure.
again, it knocked me out of alignment to where I don't feel like I was on the path to fulfilling my purpose for so long. So again, to answer your question, just reading and consuming and learn, having that growth mindset, wanting to learn everything about everything, listening to books and podcasts and everything else is just, it's been the way that I've been able to untangle all those knots and those misbeliefs and those misguided feelings and pieces of my identity that have basically kept me stuck for all those years.
Unbelievable that education, learning is what gave you this huge transformation. Right? I think that society, unfortunately, is somewhat programmed that school is for learning. And then once you finish school, you're on to doing,
Yeah.
which ergo means once you're done with school, stop learning. You're done learning. Yet that's absolutely not the case. You, in your pre-show interview, you mentioned something about never stop learning, and something about spending at least 15 minutes per day educating. You've
Yeah.
been doing that for a while now, I believe.
That was actually the very first, or one of the very first tasks or action items, action steps, as we call them in the coaching world, that my very first coach that I worked with gave me. He was like, you have to at least 15 minutes a day of something, whether it's an audiobook, a podcast, something educational. Said 15 minutes a day, every single day during the 6 months that we worked together. He said, if you don't do that, I don't want to work with you. Basically it was an ultimatum. You either do this or we're not going to work together. And it's thankfully that he did that, because I established that habit in that 6 month period. I was pretty robust about it. I missed a few here and there, but you can't go from 0 to 60 in the first try. But
Sure, sure.
but even since then, and again, it's been years, I formed that habit now, and I still do it every day. I got mad today. I was going to listen to, I have an audiobook. Like I said, I was listening to this audiobook about shame, and something glitched in my car, and my radio froze up, and my audio system froze up where it wouldn't sync with my phone. So I couldn't listen to my audiobook on the way home. It froze. It got stuck on a station. I couldn't change the station. I couldn't turn it off. Nothing. So I had to listen to the radio all the way home, which isn't the worst thing in the world, but
No.
I wanted to listen to my book.
Yeah,
And
of course. That's
I kind of got angry at the car because I can't listen. I can't fill my cup today. It's a good thing I listened on the way to work. So at least I got a half an hour in, but I could have gotten a whole hour in today and missed out a little bit. But
you wanted to
it's all
listen
right.
to the book on shame, and then when it didn't work, you said, "Shame on you, car." Like, dang
Yeah,
it.
exactly.
But unbelievable. I'm such a huge proponent of education as well, right? And so love that. And so you said it's been 7 years. That's the change that was made 7 years
Yeah.
ago, and obviously that's just one piece of this puzzle. But really, I just want everybody to hear that. The change came for you from getting coaches, getting mentors, getting education overall.
Yeah.
Out of curiosity, I don't know if I've ever really asked anybody before. Can you remember just the first coach or mentor that you ever got? What pushed you to go that direction? Because in my mind, you almost have to have a growth mindset first before
Yeah.
you go that way, right? Growth mindset literally just meaning you believe that your mind can change, you're open to learning into more knowledge. And so, what was the reasoning why you went towards getting a first ever coach or mentor?
Yeah. It was, oddly enough, it was a Facebook ad.
Oh, nice.
Which is slightly embarrassing, but it's the truth. So I'm
It was the
going with
same. It
it.
was the same for me, by the way. My first ever was also through
Oh, great.
Facebook ad. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's probably, again, it's like one of those, one of those things I've learned along the way is you got to see something 7 times before, the light goes on, right? I probably did. I probably saw it multiple times, and after the third or fourth or fifth time, I start really, you really start taking a pause, right? This keeps coming up. This keeps popping up, and again, I had been in a situation in this job where I had just gotten basically the promotion that I had been seeking for the previous 20 years.
Amazing.
As a director role, I was leading people, and it wasn't all I dreamed it was going to be. The company was challenging, to say the least. They were actually in the process of, basically, they were building up they pieced together a couple of companies and they were building it up so they could sell it. And it was getting very tenuous, and I was not happy. And I kept seeing this ad, and I was like, you know what? I need something different. And that was really what it was. I honestly, I mean, I feel like I just flipped the switch. It
Wow.
wasn't like it wasn't like I was guided to it or prodded to it in any way, shape, or form. It was just
Mm,
like,
mm, mm.
okay, I see the ad. I've seen it now for the fifth, sixth, seventh time. I'm just going to click the button and I'm going to see what this is about.
Beautiful.
And I had the most amazing conversation with the person that enrolled me. I worked with an amazing coach for the first time. And it was it was a turning point in my life. And I'm so grateful for whatever that thought was that I had that prompted me to finally hit that button. It changed my life. Absolutely changed my
Amazing.
life. And it continues to, I mean, I've had three, four coaches since then, and
Mm,
including the one I have currently that I've been working with.
great.
Um, it's just every minute of every experience I've ever had with them is just it's you know and not not everybody, it's not about the knowledge that they have, it's the fact that they hold the space for you. It's the fact
Mm,
that they can see the big picture and they see the things that you're missing and are able to point you in the right direction. And I think it's invaluable for
yeah.
I mean look at athletes. I mean,
Yeah.
Michael Jordan's not going to be Michael Jordan unless he has a coach.
Yeah.
um
Yeah. And it's not like when he
and
gets even to that level, right? Or the
right.
best athletes in the world, when they are literally ranked number one, every media channel is saying it, every website says it. They think, okay, good. I don't need a coach anymore. I'm number one.
Yeah.
No, no,
No.
they still have coaches. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Um, love that. So important. Right there. I couldn't agree with you more. And so it's interesting, right, that you sort of said you kind of just flipped a switch, and that
Mhm.
this flip came from a time after you got this promotion. You sort of hit your dream, right? So
Yeah.
let's backpedal here a little bit,
Yeah.
right? Because I asked you previously, when did you start to get this growth mindset, start to think about entrepreneurship? And you've been in a corporate job, right?
Mhm.
Growing, climbing the ladder. Your dream is this promotion, and then it wasn't as great as you thought. Tell us how that process went and what happened afterwards.
Well, basically, I realized that I was climbing the ladder, but I had the ladder on the wrong wall. It was not the wall it was the wall that again society wanted me to be climbing up, but it wasn't the ladder that you know I felt the need to be climbing up, which was being a service, helping people, loving people. Um, how did it happen? It just did. It just I don't know whether it was the spirit guided me or you know I mean I'm a believer in Jesus, and I know he's got a hand in this. Um, it just I think it was just my time. It was
Absolutely.
time for me to learn something new and go in a different direction. And um, yeah,
Absolutely.
sorry, it's not much more of a magical explanation than that, but it
It's
just
okay. Not at all. And you know, it's okay if you don't have an answer for this either. You mentioned that you sort of hit rock bottom
yeah.
after this promotion, right? Can you even describe what that feels like? I just want people out there that in their lives, right? Maybe they're getting a promotion, right? But they're not. Something's wrong. But they're telling themselves, "Oh, I should be grateful. This is no. I'm on the path. I am successful." Yet maybe it's not correct. I mean, so what is that? What was that hitting rock bottom? What does that feel like? I don't know. Reflect for us.
Prior in the do the math. So that was 20, like I said, 2016, 2017. So in the 4 years preceding that, I went through a divorce. I'd been married for 19 years,
Wow.
and probably the last four of that marriage, I had developed depression,
Mm,
mixed in with a little anxiety. So add all that together. um, feeling like I'm disconnected, not only in the marriage, but from, you know, community, um, family. My brother moved out of state. Um, my dad moved out of state. It was just a lot going on, and my kids were going off to college. So a lot of, not only was I felt disconnected already, but now people are starting to disconnect a little bit from me, in my physical space. Um, and then the job like I said, the company it was a little weird, and just all of those things piled on top of each other. Just the depression was bad. I was
Yeah.
taking medication and all that, and I had gotten into a new relationship, which is has turned out to be amazing, but it wasn't enough yet at that point to get me through to where I really was that I was missing that alignment piece, that going in the right direction, knowing what my purpose was. And that was the other part of it too. Was I got to that point where divorce happened, kids were going off to school, and I was like, okay, wait a minute. I've had the mindset for the last 18 years at that point that I was going to raise my family and take care of them, put a roof over their head, get my kids to college, all that stuff. And all of a sudden, check, 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 that's all done. And there I was
Wow.
standing with no purpose other than to just go and do this job, which I was starting to hate.
Yeah. Wow.
So yeah, that was my rock bottom. And again, it wasn't, you know, I'm sure it doesn't compare, it pales in comparison to a lot of people's rock bottom, but it was the rock bottom for me. And
I
when
mean,
I got down there, I had to find that switch to flip.
Bob, I mean, sure, like, unfortunately, this day and age with social media, especially, we all compare ourselves a lot
Yeah.
to each other,
Hmm.
right? And so, as far as you saying maybe your rock bottom wasn't as bad as other people's, let's throw that out the window because I mean, I just have so much empathy for you. It was a super tough time you went through, right? And yet you flipped this switch. What's going through my head is that this was about that time when you shifted to entrepreneurship, right? Where you started developing that growth mindset, thinking a little bit more like an entrepreneur, getting ready to start a business. A lot of people, when they're getting ready to start a business, they think it needs to be the right time, right? I don't have things figured out yet. It's not the right time. Seemingly in your story, you started making that transition at almost the toughest time possible.
Yeah.
I mean, what would you say to somebody that is thinking, oh, okay, no, I need to be at the top. It needs to be perfect timing before I make that transition. How would you address them?
Yeah. Never wait. I mean, the best time to plant a tree is 20 years ago. The second best time to plant a tree is today. Um, that's pretty simple for me. It just, yeah. Um, just do it. I mean, and that's probably one of the second first thing I learned was to keep learning, and the second thing I probably learned was don't wait. You can't wait till you're ready. You you're burning daylight. I actually I was telling the story to somebody today. I have over on my windowsill over here. I have a yardstick
Okay.
that it represents potentially a life of 85 years. So that's what I've assumed it to be, colored with a black Sharpie along that, and it's two thirds it's two-thirds black and only
Yeah.
a
Well,
third left. Um,
well,
till I hit 85. I actually today is my birthday. I turned 55 today.
no
Um,
way. Happy birthday.
yeah. So
Nice.
um, knowing that I only have so much time left and feeling like, like I said, 7 years ago, I found what my purpose is. I got a lot left to do. And God inspires me every day to keep going, keep pushing, keep, it's obviously it's not easy to start a business. It's not easy to um, build up your reputation. And when you've had 30 years of nothing in this business, um, but it's been a blast, and I just love loving on people and love making the space for them to have experiences and revelations um, to learn more about themselves
Yeah.
and get out of their own way. I use that phrase a lot, get out of your own way, but because that's what I feel like I was standing in my own way for a really long time.
Thankfully, what a blessing that you got out of your own way, right?
Yeah.
And it's such a simple piece of don't wait. People often talk about, myself including, that you jump into entrepreneurship. You have to take the leap, all these things. But you also don't, right? The don't wait piece in itself can be, you can have a full-time career and start something else. Don't
Oh,
wait. Don't think it
absolutely.
needs to be perfect, right? Just get going. I mean, that's sort of how you started as well, right? It wasn't I'm going to quit my job and dive in. It's let me just start. How do you feel about
Yeah.
that?
Oh, that's my life right now.
Yeah,
I'm still working in my job that I've been doing for 30 years. Um, it it's it's a blessing and a curse because I make pretty good money. So working as a coach, it's not as fast and furious. It's not the paycheck
mm-hmm.
isn't there every 2 weeks like it is now. So um, it's a lot to think about, but I do it right now. I'm doing it in my spare time, which is
Yeah,
becoming very very much not spare time anymore.
I believe it.
Um, but it's a blessing, and every person I work with is filling my cup and fueling me up to eventually someday and in the near future I will be able to say goodbye to that corporate career and do this full time, and that's you
Unbelievable.
know that's really what I'm looking forward to. And yeah, and if I had waited, I'd still be sitting there waiting and feeling that lack of alignment with what I'm doing. But now I have a growing list of people who um, whether it's one-on-one success stories or my group my group success stories, just men that are coming in that you know have these roadblocks and these kind of the same things that I grew up with, and now they're starting to bloom and flourish. I mean, last week actually, um, one of the men, he's been in the group since day one, and he um, finally admitted what his trauma was from his youth. Based and he said it was based on because I had told him my story. So he
Mm-hmm.
started, really diving in and thinking about what was going on in his youth and in his life. And he realized what his big T, it was a big T trauma where a lot of people have a bunch of small T's, but his was a big T trauma, was abuse. And and just the fact that he was able to get there. I mean, it took 5 years, but he got there, and I was so proud of him. It was just an amazing, and he's had a lot of stuff in his life, a lot of
Sure.
challenges, and I can't wait to talk to him again because I want to see. And I told him this the other day. This was just last Saturday. I said, "You're going to see in the days and the weeks and the months to come how much power that getting that revelation and basically telling other people about it."
Yeah.
I have one of my favorite phrases is shame shrivels in the sunlight. And for him to be carrying that shame around for decades, and
Mm-hmm.
now he's got it out, and now he can he can be himself because he doesn't have to
Yeah.
carry the burden of that on his back anymore. And it was so exciting. I'm listening to him talk about this, and I just want to jump up out of the chair and start waving my arms around like I was celebrating winning the Stanley Cup or something.
Yeah.
But
Wow.
had to be cool. But it was an amazing moment, and
Unbelievable.
I just if I could have if I can have more moments like that, you know,
It's all worth it.
it's all
It's
worth it.
that's the reason why we're here. Man, what a blessing. I can't even tell
Yeah.
you. Bob, as we start to wrap up here, right? I mean, you're doing amazing work here with men becoming better men and clearly helping people come through transformations. And you just shared a story about how through sharing your story, you've helped somebody else to figure out their traumas. This whole podcast is called Journey to Legacy, right? And so the term legacy is interesting. Some people don't like it that much.
Mm.
When you think about what a legacy is, or even just the word, what does it mean to you?
Oh, I love the word legacy. Actually, it's actually visceral. I get very excited to talk about legacy because I believe we all have. I mean, we all have the intention to leave one, right? We want to leave a place on this earth, and like I said earlier, originally I thought that was my kids, and my kids are amazing. Um, they're my pride. Actually, I just talked to my daughter a little bit ago. We've got an update from her. She's entering her third year of medical school. Um, my son is in his second year of medical school, but he's also um, done a year of grad school already. So he's on this 7-year crazy program. But they're definitely part of my legacy. But I also have every person I've worked with in my men's group, every person I've ever worked with one on one. They're all part of my legacy as well because I know, and I have evidence of this in some cases where a person I've worked with has gone on to help other people. And I love the visualization, the visual of the pebble in the pond, where the pebble drops in and the rings just keep going out and out and out. And that's what that is the visual that motivates me because I know that my pebble, every pond I throw that into, that ripple effect is going to help someone else, and they're going to help someone else, and they're going to help someone else. And if we all did that, or if we all had that mindset and we all went through life trying to, who can I help today so that person can help somebody else tomorrow? We're living in a different world and a much better
Absolutely.
one.
Absolutely, Bob. You're literally quoting the verbiage on the about page of the new Journey to Legacy community when you're talking about
I
this
swear, I swear I didn't read it before I came on.
you're talking about this ripple effect of helping others. That's what we're
Yeah,
we're all about. And amazing. That's the same legacy that I'm trying to leave as well. And so I love to hear it. Right. Your answer literally was before the show. The cumulative effect or the impact, excuse me, of you helping men with them helping more and those people helping more people as well. What
yeah.
an amazing legacy you're working to leave. Bob, thank you so much for everything that you do. Thank you for being on the show today. I
Thanks for
greatly
having me. It
appreciate it.
was it was a blast. I love being able to share. I mean, my main thing is just to inspire other people to say, hey, I got to get out of this fixed mindset. I got to get into the growth. I got to do something different. I want to be in alignment. I want to find my purpose. I want to live, and like you said, create my legacy. I feel it's so important.
And there we go, everybody. Thank you for tuning in. Thank you for listening. What an amazing story that Bob has, huh? I'm sure it's going to inspire so many of you out there. Talking about developing a growth mindset, talking about education. Man, I love that so much. And his simple advice of don't wait. Don't wait, just start, right? Start to change your life, start to change others, make that ripple effect. And along those lines, as you heard in the interview, the Journey to Legacy community is live, and I invite you all to come and join it. Come hop in and actually get access to Bob, get access to other individuals like him in the Journey to Legacy community, where we are working to better ourselves, to better each other, and thus to better the world and leave a lasting impact. Thank you all for tuning in. Check us out over at journeytolegacy.org. Until next time, my name is Wayne Veldsman. You've been listening to the Journey to Legacy podcast. Cheers.